Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Lonely Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Ariane, and today we're welcoming Olivia Blades. She's a 19-year-old who's been drawing since about fifth grade and who has recently taken up Procreate and/or digital illustration for almost a year now. She currently has a part-time job, but is also a small art business. Someday, she wants to use her art to aid her dream job as a psychologist, to show other people how to cope by using art rather than use worldly things. So, help me in welcoming Olivia Blades. Welcome to the Lonely Artist Podcast. Welcome, everybody, back. If you are listening to us and you are a regular here, today we're going to be interviewing the lovely Olivia and we're going to dig into her amazing work. I really want to learn a lot about you, and I'm sure everybody else will really benefit from knowing a little bit more about your work. So let's get straight into knowing more about you.
About me. Hmm. Ooh, I can't even really describe myself. Um, well, I used to before I was very outgoing, I was actually very shy and I would always hold my tongue. But then after a while, I started to go on this journey of self-love, which was probably, I'd say right around maybe 14, 15. That was when it was the lowest points of my life. And that's when I really started to take on the journey of, putting myself first. It was rough. Trust me, it was very rough. I have a huge history just to, be very vulnerable here. I had a history of depression and suicidal tendencies. And I really did not like myself. I did not want to be here. I did not want to see what life had for me. I was just done. And right around maybe the end of junior year of high school, it was a turning point for me. And my whole mindset just changed. It just changed out of the blue. And I was more outgoing. I was putting myself in uncomfortable situations and just living life really. And even now, being in quarantine, which is very hard for everybody, I started to put myself first and be comfortable with me, which is the first thing in self love, is being comfortable with yourself. And so that's just about me. Actually, a motto I live by now is, in order to get comfortable, you have to be uncomfortable. So yeah, that's about me.
That's a lovely thought that you said there at the end, and I'm very happy to hear that you're in a better place. I feel like we can all relate to being in a dark place and how hard it is to get out of it. So, I mean, kudos to you for working on yourself and trying to be more outgoing. And I mean, doing it even despite the situation that we're all living in, which is the quarantine. But I think you are really shining, and that is the reason why I reached out to you. I really love your work, and I guess the things that we create reflect how we are doing, how we are feeling, and I think that is something that we can see in your work that you are definitely blooming. So congratulations on that. We're proud of you. Tell me something. When did your art journey begin?
Oh, that's a good question. I'd say it started maybe around fifth grade. Because the thing was, I remember my sister was the actual drawer before I actually became an artist. I was not an artist way back when. And it started off when my sister showed me a website called dragonart.com. I don't know if it still exists, but I remember we would it showed you how to step by step draw, and I would do that almost every day. I'm talking about hours and hours upon end. And then that's when my mom realized oh, maybe we should put her in art classes, because they originally put my older sister, not me. And so when I actually went to my first session, it was very fun. I learned about the color wheel. I learned how to shade and perspectives and all that stuff. And I kept going back after year. And then the instructor actually told my mom in private that there was nothing more she could teach me. I guess I was that proficient in art. And I was like, that's kind of a bold thing to say. There's always something you can learn. And then after that, I kept honing in. I started drawing like portraits, self portraits, anything you can think of. And then that took off. And now, especially with digital illustration being popular now and everything, I took that up last year, I believe, and that started to take off, obviously. I mean, you see my work. And so that's pretty much my art journey. It wasn't easy. I don't think it's ever easy. It takes practice. I think we've all had cringe moments when we look back through old sketch pads, like, ugh, I used to draw that, or ugh, I did that, like, ew. But the journey is never easy. I know some people think that it's some magical, gift or whatever, but it takes time, it takes practice, it takes a lot of effort because it's something if you are passionate about and you will put the time and effort into it. And that's like my overall journey. Everybody's journey is different.
Of course. So you started traditionally, and then last year you took on digital art.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy because I started digital art quite a few years ago, and it took me so long to get any good at it. And like you're super good at it. So I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of practice behind it, but wow, just the 1 year, that's kind of insane. I love that you in your bio, when I was looking at your art, I saw that you wrote that you were an artivist, which I
Yes.
had never heard of before. Actually, I'd never heard that term. I was like, that's so cool. That's very creative. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about why or what that means to you. What does it mean to be an artivist?
Okay. So with that, I follow another artist. He's a big artist and I actually really love his work. He actually has the same thing in his bio. I think his name is Nicholas Smith. I think you should check him out. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, maybe that's what my work is. And especially with everything going on in this country, especially racial wise, especially with indigenous people, Black people, and so on, my art was a way of showing my solidarity and speaking out against things that many people find uncomfortable to talk about. And the reason why I put artivist in my bio is because sometimes when I don't have the words, like I know some people in the height of last year, 2020, with Black Lives Matter, they had their voice. And it took me a while to get my voice, but I realized that my voice was with art and the amount of emotion and passion you can see behind the picture. And that's how I kind of like speak about social issues. I know many people, even when I do post it, I'll get many mean comments about it and negative remarks saying take it down or like why are you talking about this, like nobody
Mm.
cares. And it's like to you, you may not care because, well, you're probably privileged in that sense to not care. But for people that are Black like me or indigenous, they can't afford not to care. And so I bring awareness not to cover up those voices, but to amplify it even more.
Yeah.
Because although I'm a small account, those 600 people still see that and still may think, okay, this is still happening and something has to be done.
Yeah, I agree. And what better way to speak your mind or to speak your truth than with beautiful imagery as well. I think that helps, even if you get mean comments, which I think it's completely awful. I'm sure the amount of people that are positively impacted by it is much larger than the people that just have nothing better to do with their
Yeah.
times in their lives. And I want to touch a little bit more on that in a sec, but you were talking about finding your voice, and I wanted to ask you about your style. I feel like you have a very specific style with your art. Um, And I wanted to ask you, was that a style that you intentionally developed, or is that something that kind of just came about with you starting to learn digital art?
Mm, that's a good question because when I originally started, I did not know how to like use the app per se. And so I, in a sense, kind of just did trial and error, which I know we all do, right? Because we're artists, we make mistakes. Not everything's going to be perfect 100%. I know when I originally started, some of my illustrations, I think the old ones that still have look like almost realism and like actual skin. And while yes, that was, I guess, kind of the direction I wanted to go, but then I realized how time consuming it was. And then I just kind of was like, okay, let me try something different. Why not try something different to get a different engagement? And so I tried with a different style, and I actually really like style because it allows me to experiment with more different colors, especially with the skins showing the different shading from dark to light. And it really just kind of keeps in mind the color theories and like different colors. And so developing that style is not easy because it's still time consuming, which I wish it wasn't, but I'd rather go slow than rush my work.
Yeah. That's really cool. And I like that the style that you developed kind of is very particular. So you know it's your drawing right away when you see it because it's something that you can
Yeah.
identify. And have you ever thought about whether you want to develop that style a bit more, change it, or are you happy with where it's at right now?
I feel like I can always like do something more to, I don't want to say make it look better, but to change it or add something or take something out. Because sometimes it's like, okay, 1 minute I'm satisfied with the style and it's like, okay, on to it next. But I think this one that I have now, I think I like it because it's only unique because it's a little bit more detailed. And I know when it's my work because I put a lot of detail. Like I'll pick out the most detailed drawing right now and like I'll execute it and I'll make sure that nobody can like copy this work because I know I did it by my
Mhm.
hand.
Well, I really like that you have, it seems like you're very clear on what you want with your style. So I think that's really cool because definitely that's not the case for everybody. And when you're starting, I mean, like I said, you've only been doing digital art for a year. So it's kind of really what's the word I'm looking for? Commendable, maybe. English is not my first language, so like I'll like have to think about the word, but admirable is the word I was looking for. That you're so sure and clear about your style and what you want to do, and I love that. That's really cool. I love the idea of like using art as a coping mechanism. I know you mentioned this, and I definitely identify with that. But I wanted to ask you, like, how do you think that art has helped you specifically cope with life? Have you used it intentionally as a coping mechanism, or is it just something that kind of happens while you draw?
When I was suicidal and depressed, art was my go to with how I felt and my emotions. And I remember, like, as a child, I think what propelled some of my work when I was in that dark hole was a dream, a specific dream I had. And I remember looking into a mirror and it was this shadowy face and it had glowing white eyes and a smile. And ever since then, I've drawn that, especially when I used to use pencil and paper. That was the only thing I would draw because when I was hurting, that was the only thing that would come to mind. And so I used art as a coping mechanism because originally my dad was hesitant to let me go to therapy. And at the time, I didn't know how to express how I felt. And so my sketch pads were very personal because it dealt with things that I couldn't explain. And so I take my art in a sense very personally and seriously for that reason, because it's like I'm putting my soul into that piece of art. Whether you get a commission from me or something, I'm putting my being into that. And so using that as a coping mechanism, it allowed me to um, see the spiritual side of things, because I am a Christian. I am a firm believer in Jesus Christ. And I felt like using that art, it also didn't really, it also helped like deal with internal things, but it also showed that there were other people out there dealing with the same thing as me. So my art was a way of, in a sense, speaking for all. And so that's how I've used my art as a coping mechanism, to just really sit down with myself and learn about myself and just work through the emotions.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for being vulnerable with me and with everybody that's listening. I think it's very important for people to hear things like this. Usually, people don't share struggles on social media and talk about things that are uncomfortable, but I appreciate that you are doing just that, because sometimes it helps to know that you are not alone in it. And I really thank you for that. Do you see your art playing an important role in your life once you reach your dream job of becoming a psychologist?
Mhm. I actually do. I've always wondered what I want to do with my art, because I've had many people who have seen my work and like been with it when it started out. They've always said like, "Oh, you should like do something with this with your art, or like you should work at this place and this place." And like it always made me question like, okay, I have such an amazing talent and gift. What do I do with it? And so when like I always refer back to when I was going through my struggle, I think that also inspired what I wanted to do, because psychology, yes, I do like learning about the brain, mental health, and like how we internalize things that can also like cause huge effects on our body and mental state. I feel like achieving that psychological job or like dream, I feel like will aid my art, because there are also forms of art therapy. And I've always wanted to use art to broadcast for other young people, because there are going to be young people after me who probably won't get to have the same benefits as me as a way to cope. And so I want to be able to show kids or adults or any age range that you can use something as creative as this. It doesn't have to be perfect, because art is not perfect, trust me. But you can use art as a way to showcase your feelings or even have a possible breakthrough, because I sure did. And it may not work for you that way. Maybe it's just something, a hobby you can take up or
Yeah, of
something.
course. I mean,
So yeah.
art is, yeah, for sure, pretty therapeutic for most people that I know who love doing it. And it doesn't really matter whether you want to become a professional artist or not. I think there's always a benefit there. So hopefully you will be able to use it for therapy and with kids as well. I'm sure that's going to be super positive for the people that you do end up working with. And I mean, it's something that I'm sure a lot of people would love to try out for sure. We've been talking about art and about your journey, but I wanted to ask you, like, who are your biggest art inspirations?
Whew, there are so many art accounts that I love. Like it's so hard to pick. But I think maybe like the main one, she's a female artist. Her name is Art Piece. It's because I love her work mainly because she amplifies anything and everything Black owned. Because, you know, it's like when Black people try to like have a little bit of success, it's like either taken away and it's either disregarded or whatever. And she amplifies like, excuse me, different Black businesses and just Black people in general. And I just love her account. Like sometimes I'll just stare at her work for hours. And like it is just like nice to like know that like, okay, like these are different businesses I could shop at or amplify.
Hmm.
And it's just really nice. I really love her work. And then another
Oh,
one.
what's her handle?
Art piece. So it's literally ARTPCE. It's like literally saying, because she actually explained like the meaning for her name is like she's speaking her piece,
Hmm.
but she's speaking her truth. So that's one. And I have one more if I can squeeze it in. I mentioned him earlier, Nicholas Smith. He's another Black artist I like. He actually paints. I'm not sure if you've seen him in this, but he was the one who painted Chadwick Boseman at the Disneyland when he recently passed. And I love that piece so much because I love Black Panther. I love Marvel. Like Black Panther was one of my favorite movies, like top notch. If any of the listeners love Marvel and they love Black Panther, please come my way. But I love his work because he also like I don't know, like the way he I don't want to say sketches, but paints the pieces is like there's a peaceful emotion behind them. Like they look almost like watercolor. And he'll post like just, anything and everything Black, like Black children, Black families, um, people who have lost their lives to police violence and everything. And he just uses his work to um, be an activist. And that's where I got the artist is with illustrations, is that he uses his art to speak up about things that many people probably wouldn't do or say. So those are the two main accounts I really like.
And I mean, well, this is a place of support. So I wanted to ask you as well if there were any smaller accounts that maybe you think deserve more attention that you'd recommend for
Mm.
people to follow. It can be one or a couple.
I think one, she's a lettering artist. I'm not sure if it counts, but her lettering is magnifique. I think it's Marls and Co. I probably pronounced it wrong, but um, she's actually she lives in Australia and she does lettering and she uses her lettering to just like little simple things like gentle reminders for the self, like take care of yourself today, or grab a cup of coffee, or even like different scriptures, because like I mentioned, I am Christian. She'll post like little scriptures and like, because we're all human, we're not perfect. And like she'll, you know, post like, hey, if you it's not too late to like forgive yourself and stuff like that. And just little accounts like that, I feel like need a little bit more recognition because it's like sometimes we need that gentle reminder.
Of course, and a little bit of positivity that wouldn't hurt anybody, right? What advice can you give to people who follow you that maybe want to become artists like yourself?
My best advice is to keep trying, and everybody's progress is different. I remember when I first started out, I was just like, I wasn't scared because I knew that I can draw, I can work an iPad or whatever, but like I started to feel a little like overwhelmed because, I started following people with big accounts like 13K, 20K, 100K. And I felt like, okay, I might have been a little bit jealous because it's like, okay, like I want that many followers, you know? But then it took time. It's not going to be a perfect, like straight shot to 100K. You have to, like, because there's a lot of things working against you to get that many followers, like the algorithm. I know a lot of artists, especially the small ones like me, were a bit concerned. Um, Finding your audience, but that comes with time. Like I know many people probably see me account like, oh, she has 600 followers and like she has this cool style. Like I wish, yeah, I have that style, but it took a lot of trial and error. Like it's only been a year and it took trial and error. Trust me. I have a lot of like discrepancies in my work that I still have to work out. But my best advice is to keep trying, to keep trying different things, find your style. If you have two different styles, that's normal, it's okay. That just means you're more talented and more diverse. And just be easy on yourself with this. You're competing. I don't want to say competing. No, you're not competing. What's the word I want to say? You're working with different versatile artists out there that probably been in the game a little bit longer and are trying to, find their audience too. So don't be hard on yourself. Just take your time.
I love how positive you are and like reassuring to people out there about, art and everything. And I think we all need to be a bit more gentle with ourselves. So that's just lovely, lovely advice. And I also wanted to ask you, like, what plans do you have for the near future regarding your art?
Well, I've always wanted to do this for a long time. I just have to like save up for the financial means for it and like invest in it actually. But to actually start making my work into actual prints,
Hmm.
physical prints that you can hang in your room or like somewhere, that's always something I've wanted to start for the longest. It was just finding the right materials and like putting the time and effort because once the orders come in, it's like, okay, you got to make sure you ship them out and then you got to
Yeah.
pay the shipping. And then, you want to make sure people give out good reviews because, you don't want people to like, I don't want to say ruin your name, but like give you a bad review because, bad reviews hurt. You don't want to disappoint somebody who's, wanted your work, in a physical printed copy for a
Of
long
course.
time.
It's a big
And
effort to do that, prints and
yeah,
everything.
yeah. But that's always something I've wanted to look into and do because I know so many people, even bigger accounts that I didn't even think seen my work at all, were like, "Oh, do you like make physical prints? Because I would love to have your work as a physical print." I'm like, "No, I don't. I know I should do this, but I don't."
Soon.
But soon, it'll happen one day. I'm not giving up on it.
Well, I'll be excited to see you when that happens so that we can all get a copy of one of your works. That would be great. You'll have to let us know. I'm sure you'll announce it on your Instagram when it does happen. And I wanted to finish the interview with my favorite question that I ask everybody at the end of all the podcasts. And that is, well, if you had any magical superpower to help you with your artistic process, what would you like that power to be?
Hmm. You know how like the time lapse reel, it like speeds up the process. I wish I could do that with in person rather than having to start with the hair because usually the hair is the most detailed and takes the longest, and then work through the skin, the shaping, and then make sure you didn't put a streak through one layer. And like, I wish that could be a power because that is so annoying,
So speed
especially
drawing through
like
the process.
yeah, and, like that would be an amazing superpower because then I can post faster maybe, but then again, that could probably ruin the quality of my work. So I'd rather just go slow and then, you know,
Well, it is a power. So in this fantastical world where you have that power, it doesn't affect the quality of your work. So I mean, that would be great. That would be the dream.
that will be every artist's dream,
Yeah,
not to like, yeah.
for sure. Well, thank you so much for joining me in this interview. I hope that everybody got something positive out of all of this. I definitely did, and I feel like I love having a conversation about subjects that not a lot of people are wanting to talk about that I feel are very important, especially within the artist community. We're all struggling, and it's good to know that we can all be a little bit more gentle with ourselves, with our work, and that through a lot of effort and practice, we can be better. We can definitely use our work as an outlet to help people that are not being able to voice their problems, that need our help, that could use it. And I guess just it would be great to make people a little bit more uncomfortable to see if maybe they'll change things.
Please.
But thank you so much for joining me. And thank you so much for letting us know a bit more about you. I'm sure there are a lot of good things that are going to be coming your way, a lot of success. And I wish you the best of luck in this artistic journey.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, that was it for today's podcast. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you all back here again.